Hi, I'm Ricky Young. I'm one of the editors here at the San Diego Union-Tribune, and we're here with our daily look behind the news. Joining me is another one of our editors, Dana Littlefield. She's a longtime courts reporter, now an editor, and her team has been following one of the biggest court cases, highest profile in the city in a long time. It involves the death of Rebecca Zahau here at the Spreckels Mansion in Coronado. And I guess it's a wrongful death case, and there's been a couple things this week that have cut one way and the other, and Dana's here to tell us about that. So why don't we start with the one way?
Okay, yes, that was a perfect intro, yes. So early in the week, we had some testimony from a forensic pathologist who did a second autopsy on Rebecca Zahau's body.
I guess we should just in
to
case
catch
anybody's not. So what she died?
She died in July of 2011. Her body was found at the Coronado Spreckels Mansion that you mentioned. It was an unusual death in that later, after some investigation, her death was ruled a suicide, but her family has long contended, hanging. She was found hanging from a second-story balcony, and the body was found by her boyfriend's brother, Adam Shacknai. The family has long believed that this was not a suicide, that it was in fact a homicide, and in this wrongful death lawsuit that they filed and it is now being tried in Superior Court, they are essentially pointing the finger at Adam Shacknai, at the brother, saying she must have died at his doing. Right. They're accusing
this second autopsy. I'm sorry,
yes.
Bring you back to the news. Thank you for the recap.
No worries. Yes, the second autopsy. This was a forensic pathologist who actually appeared on the Dr. Phil show back in 2011, and at that time he said basically that he didn't feel the cause of death. That basically it was inconclusive. He was far more definitive in his opinion this time around in court. He said he believes that this was a homicide, not a suicide, and that Rebecca Zahau was killed by someone who strangled her manually and then set this up by binding her body and essentially tossing her over the balcony.
And has anything changed since the Dr. Phil show, other than the plaintiffs are paying him to be a witness here, or?
Well, there's quite a lot of discussion in the courtroom about, what does the evidence show as is what is going to happen in any trial. So there has been testimony from Rebecca's family and from these experts who are basically saying it's impossible that she could have done this way, or that she would have done this way. Another witness who testified this week was a movement expert who talked about, because of her height, she was 5'3", would she be able to bind herself and toss herself over a railing that was essentially half her height? Right. Basically he's saying that the mathematics don't work out on that. So you had that kind of evidence this week and prior to this week.
And then arguing more for suicide, I think, later in the week, right? And
yes,
what was that?
Just yesterday, we had some pretty interesting evidence that came out, testimony that came out. One of the detectives involved in this case, a sheriff's detective by the name of Angela Sweda, talked about how she was very much involved in the investigation. There were some messages found on Rebecca Zahau's cell phone that were discussed at length. And those messages, although it wasn't clear when those messages were recorded or written on her phone, they seemed to suggest that she was distraught, that she was distressed at some point leading up to her death. I've written down a few of the points here. And by the way, this information was reported by two of our reporters, by Pauline Repard and by Lindsay Winkley. So one of the messages is that basically that she was disrespected by her boyfriend Jonah Shacknai's children, his older children, that she felt hated by his two ex-wives. She was feeling some distress over not having any children of her own. And so these messages, including I've got a couple of quotes here written down that she was not able to sleep, that her mind was racing. She wrote, "If I am not thinking, I am crying," and something about no money is worth what I'm going through. These are pretty pretty impactful messages. And so what the detective was testifying to yesterday was basically that this information, put in conjunction with all the other evidence taken from the bedroom where she went over the balcony, would seem to suggest, or did suggest to the investigators, that this was a suicide and not a homicide. Clearly, the family does not agree with that.
Right. Now, this is Friday, if I'm not mistaken. They take the day off. Is that
yes.
Right?
Yes.
So there'll be no new activity today.
That is true. Yes.
Any idea what's on tap for Monday?
Well, we are hearing that Adam Shacknai, the brother, the one who found the body and cut the body down and alerted authorities to her death, he is supposed to testify sometime next week, possibly as early as Monday.
Okay. Well, that'll be. I know your team will be there.
They will be there.
All right. Thanks so much, Dana, and thank you all for watching. And we'll see you, I guess, Monday on our morning look behind the news. Thanks.
Thank you.